All right. Okay. We are back for episode 4 of the Scoop Around the Loop. How's everyone's day going?
So far, so good, Thomas. I can't complain.
Okay. Andrew, what about you?
I'm in a truck. I'm in my truck.
I
I'm
appreciate
on
to
the
see how dedicated to the pod you are.
I'm on the road, man. I was painting at my church. They needed a wall painted, and so I have a painting service. It's very niche. It is for painting singular rooms at churches who have temporary office space, and um,
You probably don't
you
have a
get
lot
what,
of clients.
yeah, you get what you pay for too. So um, it is what it is. I'm covered in paint, but I said, hey, I got to go get on a podcast, and so here I am. I pulled up. I'm not driving. I pulled up in front of America's Best Apparel. I'm going to give Nick Drucker a shout out. I think he's here. I'm in front of his office, but Nick takes care of us and takes care of many of my friends who are business owners. Best prices in town and high quality shirt printing, hat embroidery. They do it all. So give them a shout.
Nick, if you happen
And
to be watching, just come outside your office and join the pod.
please don't tow me.
And please don't show Andrew. Let's get this started. Let's go into some local news. Andrew, I saw you share this the other day to your Facebook page, and I thought it would be a good topic to talk about. West Des Moines, the city of West Des Moines is starting a radon mitigation program that is basically going to pay for the radon testing for people, for current homeowners. And if the radon does test high, you can apply for a grant to get some of the radon mitigation system paid for if you do qualify for it. I believe from what I saw online, there's just income restrictions. But Tyler, you want to talk about, I mean, how many buyers do you have test for radon in general?
Um, Not all of them. I would say a little over half of home buyers probably test for it. To be quite frank, since I've gotten into real estate, I feel like it's almost kind of become like a political issue with radon.
Yeah.
There's some listing agents that turn it into that, I believe.
Yeah, so like I don't know. From my experience, people either like really do care about it or don't at all, and there's like no in between. Like if someone's testing for radon, very rarely will a radon test come back high, and they're just like, no, it's fine. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh,
If they're going to test for it, a majority of times, if it comes back high, they want it mitigated.
yeah, they want it mitigated. Which with the two inspectors we use most often, I want to say a radon test is what is it just like
$80.
$100 add-on or something like that. They have to place it in the basement most often, assuming there is a basement. There can't be any type of messing with the test for, is it 48 hours?
Yep.
Mhm.
You got to keep the windows shut and all that stuff while the test is doing its thing. But yeah, to answer your question, I'd say a little over half, but it seems to be like a 50-50 issue thing. People either care about it or they don't, to be honest.
And Andrew, when clients ask you about it, how do you explain what it is and kind of talk them through it?
Well, it's a natural gas, right? So like it's in the ground. You might have levels that are acceptable by the EPA. Your neighbor to the right might have super high levels, and your neighbor to the left might have levels that are just barely over the threshold, which is
And
four.
from what
I
I've
can't even
read,
see.
from what I've read, Iowa, where it sits on the earth, it has like elevated exposure. I've read that.
Yeah, it's one of the highest testing states.
Yeah, just from
West Virginia being another one.
yeah.
There's still, to Tyler's point about political, there's still kind of a debate as to how deadly it really is. I would say, you probably don't want to stand over a hole in the ground and just inhale the gas. That's kind of what I tell people. But, really, if you look in most people's pantries, there's probably stuff that'll kill you faster. And, so that's not to say that radon shouldn't be dealt with, but if it is something that you're really worried about health wise, there's probably other things in your house that you should deal with first. That's my opinion. Now, if it's somebody, when it comes to a buyer, if it's something they're really worried about, then, who am I to say like that's stupid to worry about it?
Yeah.
And, and it's easy for me to say, hey, you probably don't need to test for radon. I have a radon system in my house. It was there when I moved in.
Same thing with my house.
So it's not like I'm telling people to not do what I do, but yeah, so I mean that's kind of how I think you address it. There's factors that go into, do you need a system? Do you have, it's going to be highest in the basement. Do you have somebody that, sleeps in the basement? Is that really a living space? Yeah. So Tyler is just sucking in the gas right now.
So when we mentioned this a couple of days ago that we were going to talk about this, I was sitting down here at my desk, and behind this wall right here is a little home gym. And like an hour later, I went in there and I was going hard, and I was breathing hard out in between sets. And in my head, I was like, damn, I don't have a radon system. All of this work because I'm just breathing in radon.
So yeah, people
who train in radon laden basements are just built different,
And for me, when we bought this house, there was multiple offers on it, and we had lost out on a house that my wife really, really wanted, and I just wasn't trying to deal with that again. So I made it a point in the offer to say that I wasn't going to test for radon. I don't know if that helped at all, but that's the reason why in this home technically, or I didn't test for radon, because I wasn't trying to give the seller any reason not to mess with my offer. Our old house that we lived in for a couple years, like you guys, it came with a radon system. And I don't know, at this point, I'd almost feel like half the homes out there probably come with the radon system. But the nice thing about this program that West Des Moines is rolling out is it doesn't just apply to owner-occupied homes. It can, if you live in a rental. Yeah, if you live in a rental and this is a concern of yours, and the property owner, I guess, is okay with it, this grant or this program works for that as well.
Yeah. And I will say, I just because I don't think we mentioned it, radon is what is known as a carcinogen, so a cancer-causing gas. It's a very, very heavy gas. So that when they test it, like Tyler said, they test it in the basement because that's where the level is going to be the highest. I have been told by someone that tests for it, you could basically take that number for every level you go up, you could basically cut it in half. So when I talk to it with people, and you guys have already talked to about it, but it's like you got to think about mostly where you're sleeping. So if your basement does have a bedroom that your kid is going to be in, and you're worried about all known carcinogens, it is definitely something to think about. But like Andrew said, we're figuring out about new carcinogens basically every day. And
yeah, I mean, my opinion on it, it's a real thing. It's, again, it can cause harm. Again, I think the great debate is how much of it does it cause?
Yeah.
And are you silly for worrying about it? No, not at all. Like, especially if you're talking about a home inspection and trying to get the seller to pay for it.
Well, especially in the situation too, like that you mentioned, like if you test for it and it does test high,
you want to get that done.
You have to think about that, because when it comes time to sell, on their seller's disclosure, asks you, have you tested for radon? It? If so, what was the level? And you have to disclose it, and then every single buyer that comes in your house that's worried about it is going to want it done. So
yeah. Why not be as healthy as possible, I suppose.
And so, and I think the ultimate thing people might want to know is what does it cost to install a system? Most new construction now will have a passive system, which is the pipe's already in the ground. They pipe it through the attic, so it does give a natural place for the gas to exit. It doesn't mean like homes with passive systems are always reading low. So in the event that it does read high, they've already got the plumbing in place, and all they have to do is put a fan in the attic. And that's like $300, $400.
And that's
However,
go
I
for
was
it.
gonna say, if it's not pre-plumbed for a radon system, the radon company's got to put a hole in the ground. They do it usually by the sump pump, if you have a sump pump, and then they got to find a way for it to come out of the house, elevated over any window. So if the best on like a 2-story, the best side's just on the side of a house with no windows, because they can, you can really go anywhere with it. That approach, it's going to be about $1,200, $1,300. So from the perspective of, if you're going to sell, you might want to have in mind that this is something that might get asked for if you don't have a radon system. And then also, if the city's willing to help you out with the cost, like, take advantage of it. But I think getting back to, being healthy, if you were asking me, would you put in a radon system? I think the question would also be, hey, should I have this Little Debbie's Christmas tree cake? Like, no, you shouldn't. It's not good for you, but do what you want. Like that's really what it boils down to. Like, is it healthy for you? Probably not. Is there other things that are worse? Are there things that are also bad for your health that you indulge in? Yeah, probably. So that's kind of where I would leave it. If someone's willing to deal with it for you, you should deal with it.
Yeah.
So,
and I think I'm just going to throw this out there for anyone that owns a home in West Des Moines that's thinking about selling in a year or two. I think the free test is something to look into. There is obviously the risk that it tests high and you don't get approved for the grant to get it fixed on the cheap, but there also is the potential that it tests low and you already have that test for a buyer that comes in and you have that in your back pocket. So then you're saving the buyer money for paying that on inspection, and it could be really, really convenient.
Yep. And if it tests high and you don't feel like, or you don't have the funds to put in a radon system in yourself, and you don't qualify with this program because you make too much money, at least you can account for putting in a system on the back end.
Yeah, I mean, you could simply disclose it and say willing to install a radon mitigation system with the correct offer. I mean, it could be. And
then then the radon system or the radon company installs it a week before closing. They send you an invoice, you put it into your closing, into escrow, and then it's just paid at closing. So it's really you address a problem or an issue for a buyer, you get it paid for without having to ever write a check out of your own pocket. So,
Thomas, do you have the income requirements handy?
I do not. I believe it is.
I know it's 80%
of median income
in the area or in the city, which, if I remember correctly, for a single family household, that would equal like $63,000 or something like that. And then obviously the more people in the household, even if it's kids that don't work, that number goes up.
Yeah.
I think I remember reading like 7 total people in the household. So typically like 5 kids in that case, 2 parents. It was like 80,000 or 85, or maybe it was into the 6 figures at that point. But
yeah,
there's definitely some income requirements to work with.
Really quick, because I always find this interesting and kind of funny. Do you guys remember the highest radon test you've ever had?
Yeah, mine was like 25. I mean, it wasn't crazy, but I mean, so people know 4.0. How do you? Yeah, what's it's PCLI or PCIL penta?
Yeah,
something centiliters. Yeah. Curie. Yeah, I don't know.
I want to say we had a listing where it tested like 44 or something.
And then was that a resale listing? Was it an old house?
It was a resale listing, and I want to say, Andrew, it was a house. Maybe I won't say the specific house, but it was an older home over by Valley High School.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And just to prove how random it is, my highest one is a 36, and it was a new construction listing. Because there's always.
Personally, I feel like in a new construction area, radon would be more prevalent because of all the earth getting messed with.
Well, and it's just at points it feels totally random because the builder told me when I gave them that test that the house literally next door tested that too.
Yeah.
So it's just like, and then I've heard all sorts of like,
well, I think that's where some of the debate comes in.
Yeah.
Like, all right, how accurate are these tests? Like, how easily can they be
manipulated
to make it read higher? And I don't necessarily agree with all this, but I've heard agents, and again, this is where it gets into politics almost. I've heard agents claim that, radon companies are just a money grab, and like that's the definition of like taking advantage of scared people, which I don't agree with whatsoever as far as that goes. But you'll hear a wide range of opinions on the subject.
It's nationally known as a carcinogen. It's not like one of those things where you buy a Hoka shoe and you see that California considers some of the materials in the Hoka shoe a carcinogen. It's like nationally recognized as a carcinogen. Like,
I mean, it made an episode of The Office.
Yeah.
A couple times, actually, they mentioned it in The Office.
The silent killer. Yep. I'll say too, like we had one recently where our buyer tested for radon and it came in and it was like the day there was sleeting outside, like it had just kind of started getting cold, and it came in high, and the seller said, look, I want to retest it because of the sudden change in temperature. I feel like it kind of messed it up. I want to retest it. I'll share the results with you. If it's low, I'm not going to replace it or install it. And the buyer our buyers were good with it. And so buyers came in, or the sellers had a different company test it, and it tested well below 4, like consistently. So, if when in doubt, maybe try to, test it yourself, if somebody else is saying yours is too high. So anyways,
and I've had situations where it came in right at 4 and the buyers were like, well, there's a margin of error and we don't really feel like putting a fight up for this, so we're just going to live with it being right at that 4.1, 4.2 that it was at. So, all right, let's go into featured listings. I just listed this one today, 612 South Lawn Circle in Ankeny, priced at $245. It's just a nice little ranch that was built in the 60s and 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bath. The biggest thing with this to check out is basically any update you can imagine has been done. The only thing really is the HVAC is like 10 years old, which isn't even really that old. But other than that, in the last 2 years, they've had new gutters, new roof, new siding, fresh paint basically throughout the house, new flooring all the way throughout the house. They updated the kitchen with new cabinets, new countertops, and new appliances. They fenced in the backyard. I mean, and they also did a pre-listing inspection and basically fixed everything that came up on the pre-listing inspection.
Sounds like a dream selling client, Thomas.
Sometimes you get some really good selling clients that listen to your advice and just make the home absolutely move-in ready.
Do they have the HVAC serviced every once in a while?
They don't, but with the pre-listing inspection, the inspectors I use actually have an HVAC company come out and look at it, and it got a clean bill of health. I guess they would have had it serviced last year because there was a repair that they had to do to it, but it's working great. So basically the only thing that's not new in the house has gotten the recently serviced
and a technician. HVAC tech.
Yeah. So this is actually kind of in that it's Old Town in Ankeny. So I don't know if you guys have ever been to the farmers market that they have over there or anything in that area.
Isn't it called Uptown?
Uptown. I always mess it up. I said that.
I was like, there's an Old Town and a Midtown or Uptown.
Yeah, Uptown's a really, really cool area. Remax Precision has an office up there. That's pretty neat. But yeah, it's a pretty cool area that has kind of been revitalized recently, I feel like, or had some money poured into it to kind of get it up to par with like the downtown Beaverdale area or kind of a mini Valley Junction, areas like that. Obviously Ankeny has Prairie Trail, but Uptown's a cool spot to be on the weekends, I think. They have Fire Trucker Brewery. So if you're a fan of IPAs, double IPAs, and like triple IPAs, they have a bunch of crazy IPAs at that brewery. I know, just right down the street from 612 Southwest South Lawn Circle, Ankeny, Iowa. That's a
Say that. Say that 3 times fast. I was gonna
Boy,
say
if you need to know a brewery, Tyler Springer is your guy.
I haven't been drinking much beer recently, but I do know quite a lot about local breweries because in my past lives, I have drank.
The other place to check out right by there is Trailside Tap. That their food there is amazing. It's really close to Fire Trucker, but I mean, yeah, the new Mullets is kind of right over in that area too. It's a sweet little place. Have you guys got a chance to check the listing out online?
I've been painting, so no.
Yeah, I looked at it. I'm gonna share it. Thomas, I'm gonna act like it's mine on social media, but then at the very bottom, I'll say listed by Thomas Miner.
Okay, I appreciate that. Is that your dog barking at you because they're mad?
Because
the Amazon man's here.
Okay.
The dog can sense a lie a mile away. So, like, I hear a lie.
He's standing literally right above me on our little window seat. I guarantee you, like, nose in the curtains to lift him up and barking. That's what he's doing.
Hey, anybody listening, what do you think of Tyler's beard? It's been growing that in. I've been getting a lot of people asking me lately if Tyler and I are twins, because they either see this podcast or they just see pictures of us.
I mean, Tyler's so much younger than you, though.
Yeah,
10 years younger. But I don't know if it's because he's got more gray hair, so he looks older. I don't know.
I have a window right in front of me. It doesn't do my gray hair well.
I mean, I think mine's looking red. But
because if I do this, my whole head is gray.
Well, because it's gray, yeah.
Is it because you're stressed out so often?
That's wild. No, I'm actually like one of the least stressed out people. I don't know.
My
whole life,
40th birthday's coming up, and I'm that much older than Tyler. So
my whole life, our dad has been gray haired, but he used to dye it. Like, I'm not gonna get into that. I'm not doing that. I'm just
my brother.
My gray hair.
My brother had gray hair by the time he was my age, and I still have kind of avoided it. I got a few in there.
And when I have my crispy lineup and haircut fresh out of the barber shop, you can't see any of these gray hairs. So that's just why I keep it short too.
They say it's a sign of wisdom. So I guess kudos, Tyler.
Does that mean I'm not wise?
I mean, I don't have a lot of gray hair either, Tom. So
okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. So I figured since we did a featured listing in Ankeny and Tyler likes the West Des Moines stats so much that we would do some Ankeny statistics. So I got the stats pulled up for 50023. Ankeny is 2 zip codes now, right?
That's a Thomas Minor question.
It's 2 zip codes.
They're always trying to be like West Des Moines, so it would make sense that they had 2.
Is that stat that I know we always used to tell people, because Andrew told me at one time that Ankeny is on track to be like the second biggest city in Iowa by 2030. Is that still the?
It's already the second biggest. Wait.
It's the second. No, it's the second biggest city in Des Moines area. It's like the 4th fastest growing city in the country.
Yeah, it just passed West Des Moines last year or 2023. So yes, Ankeny.
It's the biggest suburb.
Yeah.
But before all these people who love Ankeny, I love Ankeny too. We sell there. But let's not forget that West Des Moines is on the west side, which has also Waukee, Clive, Urbandale. I would say Johnston, even though Johnston's probably closer to Ankeny. But that's over 200,000 people in those suburbs. So all of the growth in West Des Moines is going into other, like all those cities kind of connect. Ankeny's kind of on an island up there.
Yeah, and we talked about this last week. West Des Moines is essentially landlocked at this point. Ankeny, a lot of their population growth, well, not a lot of it, but some of it has come from annexation and taking over smaller townships or
Yeah,
just
yeah, and I mean
unplanned.
it's almost easier to get to Ankeny through Polk City now. I
Yeah.
mean, some parts of Ankeny almost touch Polk City. It's kind of crazy, but
Yeah. So we're looking at an Ankeny for 50023. We're looking at a month supply inventory of 2.9 months. 2% inventory decreased in the last 12 months, which I thought was kind of interesting. Median days on market is 35 right now, and this is including new construction, whereas last year it was 16 days. List to sold is 99.3%, so pretty high, just like West Des Moines. This kind of stood out to me. Median sold price right now is 342 compared to last year, 285,000.
yeah, and a lot of that's because of new construction, probably. And I would even say, anecdotally, that a lot of the new construction in Ankeny are builders who list like before they've even dug. There's certain builders that do that just to get it on the market and get it in front of people. I feel, this is anecdotal, but I feel like there's more of that in Ankeny than other parts of I mean, West Des Moines, there's not a lot of new construction going on. So I think the days on market for Ankeny is probably a little skewed if you're including new construction because of that. A lot of
Yeah,
people are like, I'll wait till it gets a little further along to see what it really looks like, before I offer. And so that kind of skews it a little bit.
yeah. And I was kind of surprised. I mean, the inventory decrease is kind of shocking to me. I wouldn't have expected that because I think when we looked at West Des Moines last week, they had an increase, just a slight increase, but an increase. Um, I will also say, I don't, and you guys can agree or disagree with me. It seems like a lot of the new construction being built in Ankeny is more so first-time home buyer price
Yeah.
points.
Out of
Yep.
DRs up there.
Yeah, DR, Greenland, Destiny's up there. Hubble, I think, has quite a few homes out there, but they're trying to build in that as low of the threes that they can get to. Whereas in West Des
We should point
Moines,
out too. Yeah. I mean, point out quick that I think the average price of a house in Ankeny is less, for like the same house in West Des Moines or Waukee. And so I think that makes Ankeny desirable for people because of the price, but the taxes in Ankeny are actually higher than like
mhm,
Waukee. So your monthly payment ends up being the same or maybe even more in Ankeny as opposed, just because of that alone, so um, just something worth, I think, noting. I mean, you just say that about anywhere, even Des Moines, Des Moines or Windsor Heights are going to have the highest taxes. Those are areas that are generally less, money to buy the house, but it's, significantly more taxes. So you're paying more per month. And so then your monthly payment actually ends up going up. So
and I think that's a good thing to point out too, because I don't know if a lot of people before they put in an offer on a house have their lender run what their estimated monthly payments would be.
yep.
Um, or at the very least, look at taxes and make sure that it's not way higher or way lower than other properties you've been looking at, just to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. Because if you're just comparing list price to list price, it might seem like it's a way bigger, better deal, but that's not necessarily true.
Yep. Yep.
There we go. We got a lender that popped in right away. It said payment shock.
You
But
just
yeah,
say the name lender and someone
yeah,
hops on. I mean, it's just like on those Facebook groups, someone says the word realtor and you have 50 people. I'm a
I
realtor.
saw one the other day that straight up said, like, I'm looking for people that have had experiences with realtors. I'm not looking for realtors to comment. And I'm like, that's a pretty efficient way to do that.
And that's very fair, I would say.
And any realtors that comment automatically get checked off.
But shout out to my friends because there was 2 posts like that yesterday, and a bunch of my friends commented saying I was a good real estate agent, and they suggested reaching out to me. Did that work out? No.
We'll find out.
Thomas, I suggest people reach out to you all the time. I refer you business all the time.
I don't believe that, but thank you, Tyler. Okay, let's get into it. Tyler, you wanted to talk about real estate investing, and I believe it was because did you recently just have a tenant move out of one of your rentals?
I just had a tenant move out, and then I placed a tenant in this rental for the second time, which also happens to be in Ankeny. And I more so wanted to talk about like achievability in real estate investing.
Okay.
One of those things that's admittedly kind of like dramatized. Everyone talks about they want to do it. Obviously, who wouldn't want to do it and make a return on your investment and all that stuff. But I think it's also at the same time kind of thought of as an elite person thing, I guess, if that makes sense at all. And to me, it can be much, much more achievable than maybe people realize. For instance, how I got started was buying a home just for myself to live in, with the idea that eventually it was going to be a rental, but bought a home, used a minimum down payment. I think total cash to close after getting some credits and stuff from the seller, it even ended up being less than a 3% down payment. Lived in a house for like a year and a half and then bought another one, moved out of that one, and then put some tenants in it. Now, most mortgages, they say that you're just required to live in the house for a year before it becomes anything other than your primary residence. And because of that reason, you can essentially get a rental property for 3% down or 5% down or 10% down versus the standard 25% down, which I've bought rentals like that before too. And that's obviously requires a lot more capital up front. And that's where I think real estate investing can become this like far-fetched dream for people when they start looking at a 25% down payment for a $200,000 home. Obviously you're looking at 50 grand liquid cash that you would need to do that if you're going to put a 25% down payment versus a $200,000 home and you just put down 3% and some change. Now you're looking at a $6,000 down payment.
And you would most likely need cash to fix the place up too, which is something to think about as well.
Yeah, but like that, this Ankeny townhouse, I've put $400 into it, and I've owned it for 3 years now.
Seriously. You want to talk really quick about, because I think you and Hannah did something really clever to get the ball rolling and get started on that too. You want to talk about how you guys managed that and started that out too?
Yeah, well, before we were married, I bought a house and had some roommates living in it, and she was living in an apartment. And then when we got engaged, we went and bought a house in Beaverdale. I moved out of that house, turned it into a rental to some buddies, and then moved into this new house that we bought. And she just bought the second house in her name. So then that way my debt from this first house wasn't included into any of the calculations or anything like that. So her debt to income for this house was obviously in really good shape, which allowed her to get a pretty good interest rate. And then we moved into that one. And then,
did she ever say to you like, "Hey, this is my house. Like you need to do this"?
That, but I would say when I brought the cash and she brought the bankability, basically, is how that worked out. But anyways, after a couple of years of living at that second house, I bought another house and moved out of that one. And then it just kind of turns into a stacking.
Because I think the biggest thing that people have a hard time wrapping their minds about is getting that first one.
Yeah. And that's my whole point, is like the easiest way to get your first one is to just buy a house for yourself to live in. Is it a rental right away? No. But in as little as 12 months, I mean, it seems like it was just the beginning of February of 2024, 4 weeks ago. So 12 months in the grand scheme of things isn't that long of a time. So you can buy a house, even if it's not really something that you love and want to be there forever. You buy a home that's comfortable for you, that's manageable, that will be manageable if it was a rental, aka you'd be able to have some type of cash flow on it, or it could rent out for more than what your mortgage is. and just kind of sacrifice for at most a year. You can very reasonably churn that first one into a rental.
Yeah. And do you want to talk? You're property managing them yourself, correct?
Yeah, and I think one thing you'll hear a lot from people is the whole like 2 a.m. broken toilet thing, and that's one reason not to get into real estate investing or managing rentals and things like that. And obviously, as your portfolio grows, and I by no means have a big portfolio, so it's much easier for me to self-manage. As you get more and more, you deal with more and more issues. But again, so far in my career, I guess, or in experience, I haven't had a single one of those stories. There's been a couple weird things that have happened, but none of them have ever been a huge inconvenience to me, to where I'm leaving my house at 3 a.m. to go fix a broken toilet. Because A, I'm not going to do it anyways. I'm going to send someone else to do it. And B, if someone called me at 3 a.m., I'm also just not going to answer the phone because it's 3 a.m. sleeping, and I think people get it confused, and I think it's a matter of setting expectations with tenants of what's to be expected. If something happens at 3 a.m. in the home, most people.
And I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, did you feel like you did a pretty good job screening all the tenants that you've had come in?
Yeah, in almost every instance, I've had a ton of applicants. And I think that that can make a big difference for getting a good tenant is providing a good property, right? I think people that have shitty properties are going to get poor tenants, right? Because good tenants don't want to rent a bad house, whereas
like a slumlord.
Yeah, everybody wants to rent a good house. So you'll get applicants from bad tenants, but you also get applicants from good tenants. So I think that's something that's super important too. And I think, again, buying a house in this way to where you live in it first, it kind of puts up that buffer of you buying a POS house because you have to live in it for a little bit too. So it's at least going to be this to a standard that is good enough for you. You know what I mean? And I think that goes a long way in getting good quality tenants. Zillow Property Manager, it's a free thing you can use. They obviously have like a pro version of it. I don't have enough units to make it worth it to me, but if a tenant opts in for Zillow screening, Zillow will run a background check where it looks in small claims courts. It looks at housing records to see if you've ever been evicted. It runs credit scores and all those different things as well. And then I always just kind of check work references and make sure that they're still employed at where they're working at now and that there's no sign of them being let go or anything like that. But there's a lot of tools out there to make it pretty easy. And then there's a website. You pay for the document, but it's like $40, and it's a website that was a collaboration with a bunch of attorneys across the country. And there's supposed to be like customized lease agreements that adhere to your state's laws. And then it just kind of turns into a boilerplate template, kind of like our purchase agreements are for home purchases. And then you put in, rent's $1,300 a month due by the 5th of every month. Security deposit is first month's rent. Pet deposit is this, blah, blah, blah. So long story short, there's a lot of tools and a lot of ways that can make real estate investing much more achievable than it may seem when you just look at it from you need 25% down and tenants are annoying because they're really not. Like if you were a tenant, how often you want to avoid reaching out to your landlord? You know what I mean? You don't want to give your landlord.
Yeah, I think the last place I rented, we lived there for 2 years almost, and I reached out to the landlord once.
Yeah, and it was probably something small, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it was the garbage disposal broke.
Yeah, like no tenant in their right mind is trying to be in constant contact with their landlord.
My roommate, Matt Andrews, shout out to Matt, did try to light that apartment on fire though, because he had never done laundry himself before. It didn't know that you needed to clean out the dryer filter every time you dried your clothes.
The lint trap.
Matt Andrews, educator of the youth.
Yeah, good thing he's not teaching laundry.
Yeah, that's true. He's not teaching home ec.
Yeah, but just a fun fact. Was it? We could ask this question and then finish up unless Andrew has questions. Was there anything that since you started? What I mean, was this about 5 years ago now?
Yeah.
Is there anything since you started that's actually surprised you?
I would say going back to like the ability to screen tenants yourself with the help of like Zillow Rental Manager.
There's other ones too. There's other property management.
There's a ton of them. There's a ton of them.
Yeah.
And there's ones that are that do a little bit more than what the free version of Zillow Rental Manager does. That just cost a little bit more and do a whole lot more. So you could really get really in depth with things in terms of screening tenants. But yeah, when I thought there's going to be a lot more hoops to jump through. I would say like the biggest hoop to jump that I've had to jump through so far is getting a rental certificate in the city of Des Moines, and talking to other landlords. The city of Des Moines, for whatever reason, their rental certificate or like inspectors are pretty stingy, I guess, or like strict.
I've also heard it's kind of dependent on the inspector you get, or like
depending on the inspector. That's why it can be kind of frustrating because you don't know, if they're nitpicking something. You also know if you had just called like the next day, you could have gotten a totally different response.
How does it compare to Ankeny then? Was Ankeny pretty painless?
Well, I just own the one townhouse in Ankeny, and again, I've had to put $400 into it over several years. So like it was, the dude just walked in and walked out, and he gave me the rental certificate in Ankeny.
I think too,
a lot of times, some places they won't even like go to the place. Like if it's a newer home, or especially like because a newer home, you're gonna have that has to pass code for when it's built.
What year was that townhome built?
It's a Triton 3-story, one of those.
So like early 2000s.
Yeah.
I think too. I mean, a couple things that I would point out about, if you're just looking to get into investing, owning real estate or owning rentals on a small scale, you can start with townhomes because you kind of have a management company built in with the HOA. Your costs are really limited to the inside for the most part, the inside of the unit. But I like what you said too, Tyler, about, I think it's true in life. If you take care of something, people will want to take care of it too.
Yeah.
And so I think if you're just putting, I see those pictures and stuff on social media of, an outlet just being just being painted over or something. And, if you want people to take care of your stuff, you should do it too. And I do think that always comes back in if you want to call it nature, in life, it always comes back. So I think that's a really good point. If you want to avoid those calls, people do want to have pride of ownership. They do want to live in a nice place. And if you give them something new, or in good shape, like they'll for the most part, they'll work to take care of it. So, I mean, some people are naturally messy and they don't know that, or messier than I would like them to be. I'm sure there's things I do that would annoy people too, but, so it's not to say like someone's going to keep it as perfect as you, but they're going to at least have that in mind that, hey, like this is a really nice place and I want to take care of it. And I don't want to have to find a new place in a year, so I think that's a really good point.
And I think
I did think of something that connects us back to the original discussion about radon is, Tyler, that first place that you had on 35th Street, the radon test was done in the bedroom upstairs.
Yeah.
And so I just think that was probably something done in air. It was a long time ago, or maybe that's something that we didn't really think about, but it was in that back bedroom. I remember
with that house, it had that house, man. It had that tuck under garage that had no insulation.
Yeah.
like no barrier. So maybe that was just because it was like, and if you remember, like the whole basement where you would come in from the back alley was basically a entry point. So like maybe he figured like you couldn't put a test there because people have to come in and out and it's going to be disturbed.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah. Anyways, kind of way to connect our first point to our last, but
On the townhome note, too.
That house just looks like Radon, if that makes sense.
if Radon had a fate.
Yeah, if Radon was a physical address, it'd be that house.
On the townhome note, the other thing that Tyler is talking about that's really nice with the townhomes is a lot of those HOAs don't let you immediately buy it and turn it into a rental, but they let you turn it into a rental if you've lived there for a year or 2 years. So like what Tyler's talking about, buy a townhome as your first place, live in it for a year, and then turn it into a rental.
When you do it like that, you get kind of a quote unquote entry level way into home ownership with again a townhome, to where you don't have to worry about exterior maintenance and lawn care and all that stuff. And the exit, you get an entry into.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot less risk to it because, like you said, the exterior, a lot of them are covered through the HOA. You might get it.
I would say kind of the one downside to that would be, generally speaking, townhomes kind of appreciate a little bit slower than like a single family house would. So your ability to kind of play with some equity to maybe buy another home based off the equity of your first rental, like that stuff kind of gets minimized a little bit when you're using a townhome.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Have you run the numbers on it? Are you less likely to get strong cash flow with the townhome, or is it about the same?
No, definitely less likely, I would say. But again, to Andrew's point, I think there's less like
risk,
capital expenditures that you have to worry about and set aside with that management company in place. And like I don't think we've talked about in this pod, but with like insurance, your homeowner's insurance is going to be a little bit cheaper in a townhome.
It's more like renter's insurance because you're just
like a
covering
type of thing. So pros and cons to everything. But obviously townhomes are very, that's going to be the least intimidating thing. Andrew and I have a client who has like 15 townhomes, all the same thing. And he's doing well. And it hasn't been like multiples at a time. It's just been one by one, and
it works out for him because he knows exactly what each unit looks like. He knows exactly how much it costs to carpet each room, so it's really, he can really make it turnkey, because of that, he knows what he's going to have to spend, assuming he's going to have to replace everything. So,
Sweet. Well, we got a note from Jared Nicolai's saying, "Good work, fellas." I think he's trying to get us to wrap it up.
Do you have any predictions, Tommy, for the Super Bowl?
Oh, Chiefs are going to win, obviously. A lot of people are going to be frustrated. Travis is going to propose to Taylor. She's going to say no.
Heck no.
Oh.
Travis is too player for that. He wouldn't do it at the Super Bowl.
Kendrick is going to perform Not Like Us twice.
Okay.
That's it. That's all I got.
Tyler Springer will be praying. I think Sound Off did a poll. It was, who do you want to win, the Chiefs, the Eagles, game gets canceled, or a meteor hits? I really hope the game gets canceled and they can't play the Super Bowl. Because
that's the other thing too. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I don't really love Philadelphia Eagles fans.
No, I don't. You would think.
No, Abu Sama Jr. is our guy.
There's a couple other fans that I'd like to, but generally speaking,
our cousin Sarah.
Think that the Eagles have won like 8 Super Bowls. They've won 1.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're not on the Chiefs level in terms of franchises even, and you would definitely think they were. That's kind of frustrating.
I think Jalen Hurts is good. Saquon Barkley's a generational talent. I mean,
what about Cooper DeJean?
Iowa boy.
He's the second best player ever out of Otobote, Iowa. Second greatest athlete.
That's a pretty cool story, and for that reason, I feel like I'm kind of pulling for the Eagles. Did you guys hear about that? There's a famous like Chiefs tavern in Philadelphia.
No.
It's like a Chiefs themed tavern, and they're shutting down this weekend. He's like, I'm not dealing with that.
It is also Cooper's birthday on Sunday.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs win. Cousin Jeff, I don't want them to, but I think the Chiefs win. I think it's going to be, I think it was last week was the first time they scored over 30 points in a game all year.
Yep.
The only team to ever do that and have a winning record in a season, to never score 30 in a regular season.
And I do have one more note for people that hate
they're the only
Chiefs.
only team. Yeah.
One more note for people that hate the Chiefs and think the NFL is rigged, because I'm getting tired of this. If you're so confident that the NFL is rigged, go ahead and pull out your savings account and bet for the Chiefs to win on Sunday.
I already did. I don't think the NFL is rigged, but I do hate the Chiefs. But I don't think it's rigged, but I do hate the Chiefs. Yes, as a diehard Bronco fan living in Iowa, surrounded by Chiefs fans, and all my life growing up, they were always like okay, but it was the AFC West was the Denver Broncos division, and obviously that's changed drastically. And just like the sheer domination that the Chiefs had carried out on the AFC West and like the Broncos in general is, and then you go like this year, Broncos are going to beat them in Arrowhead and they block a kick. And the way they do it, again, the Chiefs weren't helping them. The dude runs over the Broncos offensive lineman. Like, again, just pure domination. I hate the Chiefs. I hope the Eagles win if I had to pick, but I do not think the NFL is rigged.
Okay. Andrew?
I think the Chiefs will win.
Do you think the NFL is rigged?
I think it's rigged.
I think it's rigged to incentivize like star players to do well, but I don't think the outcomes of games are rigged. But I do think 100% Pat Mahomes gets calls that freaking Jameis Winston's not going to get. But that's
I think they want to keep their star quarterbacks healthy.
Yeah, it makes sense why they do it. Whether we like it or not, I get it.
Yeah. Okay. This is a good talk, guys. I appreciate everyone.
All right.
I think we got another comment. Jamie Elliott says no one can tackle Saquon Barkley. Eagles win.
All right. Hey, Jamie.
Jamie Elliott has the same physique as Saquon Barkley. Okay. See you guys.
See you later, guys. Have a good day.